Hey everyone, how you doing? I am Clara and welcome to my nerdy little channel. So I do lots of stuff, mostly review board games because that's what I have the most time for. But I love talking all things Dungeons and Dragons and nerdy really, and that's what I'm going to talk about today, Dungeons and Dragons. I'm a big fan. I've been a DM for 8 years pretty much non-stop, and I've been a fan of the world for years. I played Baldur's Gate when it first came out. I loved the Dungeons and Dragons cartoon, which was out when I was a kid. And I own over 250 of the Forgotten Realms books. I wish they were still making them, but I love those books. I love those stories. I don't always remember the lore, but I love reading it and adding to the universe. So I think I could tell you a pretty good overview of what's happened to the gods at different timing for them. But there we go. So as someone that's a big fan of Dungeons and Dragons, I was really excited to see that there was a new film coming out on Amongst Thieves, because we've had rubbish films. And the truth is, we're in the golden age of storytelling for Dungeons and Dragons. You've got these web series like High Rollers, Dimension 20, Critical Role, Dungeons of Dragonheim. Like, we've got some amazing, amazing storytellers in the world right now. And people like Chris Perkins and stuff from Wizards really know what they're doing as well. They really know what they're doing as well. So there's no excuse to have another bad Dungeons and Dragons film. So I'm going to talk about the film. I'm going to talk about it as someone that is a player of Dungeons and Dragons, and I think that that's quite important to as we go through. That I can make those comparisons as a player to playing a campaign. It'll be spoiler free, and I'm also not getting into drama. I realize that there's always drama with stuff. I'm not getting into any of that. This is just a review of the film that I have been so desperate for about 35, 40 years. So what did I think of it? I kind of liked it. There was a lot to like about this film. Yeah, I kind of liked it. There are a few things that I thought they got wrong, but let's talk about the lore. The lore. So, like I say, I read a lot of the lore. Do I remember all the lore? No. I'm not great, but certainly the Red Wizards original series with the Red Wizards of Thay in them and the history, Saztam and stuff like that. They were packing in the lore. There was a lot of lore there. I don't think that you needed to know the lore to follow the film. You didn't. They told you the important things. You got the gist of what was important. But if you did know the lore, you had that extra little bit of insight, a little bit of extra thought. I've read a whole bunch of books around Saztam, so I could sort of imagine that character. And the Red Wizards of Thay looked exactly how I imagined them, so that was kind of cool. So they piled in this lore. They did it with places and spells and artifacts, and they did such a good job. And I love the fact that they were really busy talking to wizards. I think I remember seeing an interview with Chris Perkins, and they were saying, like, is there a prison anywhere? And there wasn't. And so, wizards created the prison that they used in this, and they put it into Rime of the Frost Maiden. And so, yeah, they had Revel's End was in a book before the movie, but actually it was an idea that came up from the movie. So things like that are really, really cool. And there's lots of stuff, like there's lots of artifacts. So occasionally they'll name artifacts. Sometimes they'll put them in, but actually a lot of them they don't. I mean, we saw in the trailer, we saw the green flame sword, and then there's other stuff like Nightblade, and I'm pretty sure there's a Holy Avenger, and there's other artifacts in there. But, I think as Dungeons and Dragons players or creators, we forget that these are artifacts. These are not common. These are not what most people, the population of Faerun, have. And so they sort of do a good job of saying that these are, special. These are special artifacts, and you don't just get them, and they don't just turn up, usually. And I love that as a concept. I think it's like, this isn't for everyone. You've got to be a hero to get these items. And that's good. It's because, again, in our campaigns, often we want to defeat someone and we've got to go on a campaign to go and get an item. And that's what they're doing. They're going on this campaign to get an item. And when it comes to items, I love the fact that there was even a moment where one of the characters is like, oh yeah, I just happen to have this. I forgot about this. I don't really, don't know much about it. And someone else is like, oh my goodness, this is an artifact, blah, blah, blah. I mean, how many of your players have gone like, oh yeah, I forgot about this? Or, oh, I wonder what this does. And it turns out that it was the perfect perfect artifact to bypass all the traps in the dungeon. It's the one thing that would perfectly bypass your entire dungeon that you have spent hours creating, and they forgot about it and they pull it out. It's like, oh yeah, it turns out that we can use this. Go figure. Yeah, so that was so, as a dungeon master, like there was a scene in this film that I just felt but it was great. I loved it, and it had that feeling of playing Dungeons and Dragons with your friends. I also love the fact that, you know, there's other things like, you know, there is a dungeon and there's this really overly complicated puzzle to get through. You got to do this, you got to do this. And then one of the players does the equivalent of rolling a nat 1 and just messing the whole thing up. It's like, you know, as long as we don't pull this brick out of this wall and it all falls down, we'll be fine. And then you roll a nat 1 and the whole wall falls down and the party is like, okay, that dungeon's dead to us. I love the way that they incorporated what was equivalent of nat 1s in the film. That was brilliant. That was really good. That was really good fun. So it was great to see these artifacts. The locations are beautiful. It was amazing to see the spine of the world. It was great to see one of the 10 towns from Icewind Dale. It was amazing to see Neverwinter, Waterdeep, and there was a whole bunch of other locations. It was just, oh, they were lovely. They were so good. They looked just how I wanted them to look, and so that was really nice. In terms of monsters, in the trailer, there's the gelatinous cube and the displacer beast, and they were brilliant. And there's some other awesome monsters in there. There's one point where they're going through a location and they're like, oh, this is this type of monster and it'll do this. So, you know, don't go near it. And it was great because me and my friend immediately looked at Isaac, one of my friends, because on the first session of our current campaign, they did exactly that, you know, and so it was like, yeah, don't do this because this is really bad for you. And it was great to be able to look with the party and be like, hey, you did that. So that felt really good. And also the fact that they're sort of telling you like, oh yeah, these monsters do this, these monsters do this. It was a little bit like someone rolling, you know, a history check or something like that, and or a nature check and being like, oh yeah, you know, these monsters, they do this. That came across in the movie. But again, if you didn't know what the monsters were, it didn't really matter. But if you did, there was that extra little bit of, you know, there was that extra thing. And of course, it's also awesome to see gelatinous cubes and mimics. I mean, of course it is, and I'm not going to spoil any others, but they were in the trailer, and I thought the displacer beasts were fantastic. The way magic works, I like the way that the magic was thing. If there was an enchantment, a kind of minor illusion, I thought that was really good. The way that worked, a major illusion, I guess. I loved the way that worked. It looked really good. And some of the other things, you know, I loved it. But I loved the fact that occasionally, like, they'd have something like Wall of Force, and you see the effect, and I thought it was done really well. And then even stupid things like produce flame was there. But sometimes they did sort of shout out what it was that they were doing, but not too much. But it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to use this spell, and that was kind of cool. But then other times they just used it, and there was a lot of spells that you'd recognize in there. No two ways about it. Like, you know, a lot of classic spells in there, and I thought that the way that they were visualized was really good, and I really enjoyed it, you know. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff, but again, you don't need to know the lore. But if you play, then you probably will, and it's kind of nice to be like, oh, that's that. So that's cool. It's something for the fans, but you didn't need to rely on it, you know. Characterization of the people. So you jump around from one bit to another. Like, you've got the setup, the backstory, and then you've got getting the band together, cool, and then you've got the story, and they're going through a series of dungeons or adventures, and it's great because you're going from one adventure to the next, and then there's a fight scene, and then there's stuff, and then there's a fight scene, and then there's stuff, and it jumps around. It's got quite a fast pace, so you don't get bored. But I thought that there was enough, and because you were cutting out all the traveling and the journey, well, That's like a D&D campaign, right? Who spends 3 sessions talking about the journey somewhere unless there's something particularly special about it? So I liked it. Felt like you were playing a D&D campaign. It felt like it. You were going from here to here to here to here. You've got to do this. You've got to get that. There's one amazing heist scene. There's a wagon and a heist scene. Not going to go into it more, but everything about that scene I absolutely flipping loved. And I also love that, within the film there was some of the best laid plans. We do this, it'll do this, it'll do this, and then something stupid happens, and the whole, thing is just boom, it's done. You can't use that plan anymore. I loved that, and it's like, okay, let's split the party now type thing. So many things felt realistic to play in a campaign. And that was just really good. That was just really good fun. And like I say, the characters, I liked all the characters. They didn't concentrate on them loads, but they still all had a little bit of a story arc, apart from maybe one. Like 3 of the main ones had a story arc. And it was quick and it was brief, but it was there, and there was development and there was growth, and it felt like a campaign. I mean, maybe you play one of those campaigns where it's heavy on RP and character development, but most, I'd say, average D&D games, you don't. It's just there and there's a little bit in the background, and they still managed to touch on that. And so again, it felt like playing a standard campaign that, with the amount of character growth that there was. The visuals were fun. There was a lot of nice fun gags in there that I really enjoyed. They were fun. My sense of humor, if I'm perfectly honest. One thing that was weak was the music. I didn't think that... It's not like Lord of the Rings or Star Wars where you have these really dramatic themes that you recognize straight away and it returns and returns. I didn't really notice any of that. I don't know, maybe it was there, but I didn't notice it. And also, you've got a bard. And let's be honest, like there's some amazing music out there for this type of thing. You've got creators like Sam Riegel and Ginny D. They're doing amazing sort of ditties and stuff. You've got The Witcher did a bard perfectly in terms of the music, and they did that absolutely fantastic. So this was weak. This really should have been stronger. The songs were short and just not that good, and the score didn't really grab me, or it wasn't noticeable to me. But maybe it was there, but I just didn't notice it. So that was definitely a weak point. But then occasionally things happen, and to be honest, you're not always sure what's happened. Like there was one bit where there was getting out of one space, and I sort of know the mechanics of what they were doing, but it felt like they missed something in the edit, and so it just went from we're trapped, we're going to try and get out, okay, we're out, and there was no, I don't know, I don't really know what happened. So there's that. But other than that, yeah, stupid things like I say, opening a chest and there's a mimic, and like I say, replicating of pretty much nat ones was great. There's a lot to like about it. It's not perfect, but it's a film that I could happily watch again and again, even though I didn't think it was amazing. I think this is exactly what I want. There were a couple of cool Easter eggs, and just, there was a clear Critical Role reference there, and there was a definite, oh my goodness, really clear Dungeons & Dragons 80s cartoon reference in there, which I just loved, both of them. I'm sure there's lots more, but I didn't notice them, so I need to watch it again. But yeah, I loved the lore, I loved the way they built it. It felt like playing Dungeons & Dragons, and it was what I wanted from a Dungeons & Dragons movie. It really was. I think that they did a fantastic job, and I can't wait to watch it again, to be honest. So, and I can't wait to play my next, my next session's not for 2 weeks, so I can't wait to get back into the driver's seat. But yeah, finally we've got a Dungeons & Dragons film that we can be happy with, and it just, as a player and a DM, it really captured what I love about playing Dungeons and Dragons. So in that regard, so well done. So yeah, awesome. Thanks so much. Maybe like, subscribe, and until next time, take care, and bye bye.